energy, low in fat. Inflammation, growth factors, signaling are also critical factors. Inflammation, and that goes back to Virchow in the 19th century, who said cancer is a wound that does not heal, and modern research shows that it is inflammatory factors that feed the growth of a tumor. A tumor can't get any bigger than 1 million cells. A tumor cannot get bigger than 1 million cells unless it develops its own blood supply. 1 million cells is the size of a pinhead. There was a study that was done in Sweden several years ago. They looked at 100,000 women. 50,000 of those women had mammograms, and 50,000 hadn't. The women who did not have mammograms had a 5% less incidence of breast cancer. The only explanation you have is that their cancers disappeared. So cancer, tumors disappear spontaneously. I'm not suggesting you shouldn't have a mammogram. I'm just saying that tumors can disappear spontaneously. A tumor needs to have a blood supply. What feeds that is inflammation. Angiogenesis, that is the development of new blood supplies, is what occurs when you have a wound, when you have inflammation. So if you can block the inflammatory factors, C-reactive protein, serum amyloid A, some of the cytokines, you can actually stop tumors from growing. Breast cancer is the leading cause of cancer in women in South Africa and around the world. The age standardized incidence was quoted as 33 per 100,000. The incidence of breast cancer is increasing in the developed world. Cancer in South Africa is an emerging health problem. Prostate cancer is second most common malignancy in black men in South Africa and the most common solid organ malignancy in white men in South Africa. This is an interesting factor here, that breast cancer amongst the women who are living in the country, that is, their primitive lifestyle, the traditional lifestyles, is extremely low. It's equal to Japan, which is the lowest in the world. But people who live in the city, both white and black, their breast cancer rates go up to what it is in Europe and America. So it is lifestyle that drives breast cancer. This is again a chart showing the increase in cancer according to age. And you can see here, 75 plus, how it increases. The likelihood of a cancer when you're 20 is extremely small. But it goes up as you age. Why? Every time a cell divides and replicates, the possibility of damage and that damage being established in the offspring increases. Lots of factors drive that damage to the DNA. Inflammation is one of those factors. So, again, as I said earlier, if you want to prevent cancer, you start in your 20s, 30s, and 40s. You don't start when you're 70. The damage has already occurred. Cancer incidence, it is increasing in spite of claims that there is a decrease. It is increasing. Again, as I said, there are a number of factors for that. It isn't just, it is aging population. It is reporting of that. But fortunately, mortality rates are decreasing. Now, this is part of the issue about mortality rates. If you have cancer, you get the best treatment you can. A combination would appear statistically to give you better results at avoiding reoccurrence of that cancer. This is not to say that there is one particular approach that works, but rather a multi-level approach. Body fatness, these are some of the statistics. The portion that is overweight, obese, more than current levels, preferably lower in 10 years. Ensure the body weight throughout childhood and adolescence. We know these things, not just cancer. Heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and a number of other chronic diseases are associated with obesity and overweight. And these are just lifestyle issues. Ensure the body weight throughout childhood. Maintain body weight within the normal range from the age of 21. Again, this is not easy. Tend to get older, like it's easier. You like the food. You want to relax. Of course, we understand that. But you have to avoid these things. Avoid weight gain increases in waist circumference. The weight is the issue. So women tend to, if they put the weight on their hips and their thighs, that's really pretty inert. That doesn't bother the problem. It's the weight around your middle. Physical activity. You need to be physically active. In this case, they're looking at PALs, or we often call METs, metabolic equivalents, above 1.6. I exercise 5 days a week at least. I generally do about the equivalent of 10 metabolic equivalents per hour. 100 metabolic equivalents. So I increase my metabolic rate over an hour by 100. And that's one of the factors. Walking for 20 minutes on a level ground is probably not particularly effective. You may have to begin there, but if you want to really exercise, you have to exercise so hard that you can't talk. Your breathing is so heavy. That's the level of physical engagement that you must accomplish. Don't watch television. Television is evil. Food. Limit your high-density foods. I mean, we are genetically programmed to eat high-energy foods because our ancestors basically lived on, really quite simple foods. And if they found honey or fat, they ate it. But they came across these foods very rarely. We now live in an environment where these are basic foods that people eat every day. They are inappropriate. So you eat low-energy foods. Consume fast foods, not at all. Vegetable foods, 5 portions of fruit and vegetables a day. Eat relatively unprocessed foods. If your grandmother didn't understand what it is, don't eat it. People who consume starchy foods like roots and tubers should be eating lots of vegetables as well to compensate for those sort of things. And this was a study that was done several years ago, 2007. Again, when I talk to you about these things, I'm basing it on information that has been researched. It has been reviewed by peers. It's evidence-based. And I think that's really critical. We were talking earlier in the hallway or outside about that. We need, as complementary practitioners, to bring degrees of science to what we're doing. We need to really understand that. We need to look at that sort of thing. Diseases of the cell. The body consists of about 63 trillion cells, and those cells go through damage every day. If you have influenza, it may go up to 100,000 different kinds of damages. But most of it happens only on one strand of the DNA, so the body can repair itself. Flying in an airplane, you're exposed to ionizing radiation. You go out in the sun, you're exposed to ionizing. You cause harm to cells in that sort of thing. Most of it is repaired. When there is an aberrant cell, the body has a system that kills that cell. It induces apoptosis. The cell dies, goes into senescence. The body has repair mechanisms. So a tumor is actually a very bizarre event. It is an unusual event. That it is occurring more and more in our culture is something that we really need to examine, not just from a biomedical point of view, but from a social point of view. What is a cancer cell? A cancer cell is a selfish cell. It grows without regard to its community. It grows without regard to the host. It is an immortal cell. You can kill a cancer cell, but cancer cells will not go into senescence. They will divide and grow. If you put a healthy cell into a dish and you feed it, it will grow to a certain level and then stop growing, and that community of cells will self-regulate. Cancer cells won't do that. Cancer cells will keep on growing and growing and growing and growing. Cancer doesn't kill you. It just crowds out all the healthy cells. So what happens is we have a community of cells that are extraordinarily self-centered and selfish. So from a spiritual point of view, I think it's important to recognize that cancer is not just a biomedical condition, but perhaps has spiritual components to it as well. Malignant cells, I've said all of this. potential to grow